didn't. I reviewed my notes. I didn't cover. I just want to kind of at least give a little, so that the one right before, the weird graph that appeared a moment ago. Perfect. So we're going to look at this in a lot more detail next week. Sometimes it's better just to keep the concept. But what we just talked about when we say two phases is that normally your body goes into what's called sympathetic, parasympathetic, little ones throughout the day. And then, of course, when you sleep, bigger ones, right? So these are these rhythms we have. That's called homeostasis. And we can, these rhythms can go quite, quite up or quite down in the day when there's stressors, as long as we're kind of balancing things. We're a little bit like, oh my God, but we balance. It's when that thing that's like, what? That too, someone just asked, parent died and then right after the other parent died, that, oh my God, this was not what I expected. I did not expect to have to go through this without either of them. That would start the shock, right? That would be that conflict shock, which Dr. Hunger called it after his Durkheim syndrome, DHS, after his son. That was the shock. Once that shock occurs, your body starts adapting, that adaptation period. Once you resolve what occurred, once you're like, okay, I did that. I'm fine. I'm able to cope with this. It's not a big deal. It doesn't keep you up at night. It doesn't produce emotions when you think about it still. It's like neutral. The body goes into resolution. If it's just the end of the day, you stop thinking about it, the body can go into resolution. And if the next day you wake up and start thinking about it, the body can get back into active. Okay. But the theory, the goal is that you have an adaptation, then you resolve it. I stop taking the sun, and the body starts breaking down my beautiful tan that I get, or I used to get when I was a kid and actually had time, right? Because we had summers. Um, so this breakdown of the adaptation actually occurs in two phases. Think about when you cut yourself. When you first cut yourself, what occurs is that area gets inflamed and red and hot, right? It like swells up. That's the first phase of healing. So inflammation, that word that everybody here is obsessed about getting rid of, is actually the first phase of the healing when your body is bringing nutrients into the area in order to repair the area. If you think about a cut, it begins with a swelling. Then what happens is that swelling actually disappears. That swelling disappearing, which means all the edema, all the, I always say like all the little, like if this was a construction, you were constructing a house, instead of, reconstructing a tear. All the machinery that came in to help construct leave, right? And so that healing crisis is like your body flushing out all the inflammation, flushing out all it needed to make the repair. And then the second half of healing is actually quite light. It's when you have that scab. It's very dry. There's no longer any inflammation, but you're not done, right? If you take off the scab, it's not going to heal properly. So there's that second scarring stage of healing. And then, you go back to homeostasis. Okay, again, this is the first time you guys see this graph. We will keep looking at the graph. Um, so if you can go to the next one, and the next one, I guess, because we just did that, I had it backwards. So what we've covered is some core concepts of German New Medicine. It's not everything, but it's some concepts so that you can start reading symptoms. This is about, so I always laugh in my house. Everybody's like, I got a cold sore. What is it? I just started sneezing. What is it? Right? It's like, I want you guys to be able to say what it is. Okay. That's what the goal is for these weeks, is to be able to, I tell my sister, that's a separation conflict. It's on that side. It's probably your son, and she's like, oh my God, I know exactly what this is. Okay. And then she off and running. Right. So today we covered just the core concepts. that a symptom begins with a complex shock, right? With something that is acute for you, distressing for you. Maybe someone else doesn't distress them, right? But for you, it does. That exam on Friday before a holiday, it's like, are you kidding me? It really distresses you. And someone else is like, oh, yeah, that way I go on holiday and I don't have to think about anything. When for you, you'd rather have the exam after. It's acute for you. It's unexpected. You didn't, you didn't even see that coming. It didn't even occur to you that could be an issue. It's isolating. It didn't occur to you, and you're kind of maybe embarrassed about the situation, or you don't talk about it, or even for yourself, it feels so bad you try to put it under the rug. Okay. And it has, of course, in that moment, there's no immediate solution. Nice. The biology of trauma book. Great. Talks about complex shocks. Cool. Then the second, what we talked about is the body adapts. It's adapting to these stressors. It's not breaking down randomly. I know most of my clients always, you'll hear people all the time. Once you start learning this, you hear it everywhere. It's like, right when I finally da da da, right when things were starting to go well for me, why did this symptom come? Because you're in the healing of the adaptation, right? That's over and over. You'll hear it over and over, and it'll start making a lot of sense. Okay. If MS, people often get symptoms after birthing, perhaps well, if you've had your symptoms before birthing, what happens in birthing is your body prioritizes the baby and not you. So it is going to put all the energy in building a baby than in keeping you safe. Unfortunately, you become second. So oftentimes it will step back from protecting you in order to dedicate all the energy to the baby. That's why it's after the baby is born, and probably after it's weaned off, lactation, etc. Will the symptom come back? Not because, oh my God, it's just that your body's like, okay, we created this thing. This is number one is procreation for biology. That's been settled. Now I need to protect you. So it's actually come back in order to protect you. We're going to look at eczema today as an example. So great one, right? So the body adapts, and we're going to use newborns on that one. So it's adapting. Three, the body part that adapts. So think about in that eczema, think about what part of their body were they getting the eczema, okay? Because that's going to be really relevant. The body part that adapts, the body part that has a symptom, is very connected to the need that's trying to be met. The biological program, so there's two phases. Remember, this whole program, after the conflict shock, we start a program. This program has two phases. Adaptation phase, which in the books and stuff, you'll hear it's called conflict active. And then the breakdown phase of that adaptation, which is called the healing phase. The catching cold is usually because you see someone sneezing and you're like, oh, that stinks. I hope I don't get that cold. And then, of course, you get the cold. It's actually very much in line with terrain theory versus germ theory. If anyone has studied terrain theory, I have a very old blog post on the terrain theory. I probably have to update it. But this is all about terrain theory, which means we already have all the germs and microbes and great little creatures inside of us all the time helping us, and they only show up to help us break down an adaptation. We actually don't get it from the other person. When we go to another country and we get much worse flus, it's yes, because we're starting to adapt new germs to utilize and our body hasn't figured it out yet. So usually things go a little crazier. I went to Vietnam a couple years ago and I have never had that highest fever when I was there, but I was like, yes, finally we get to go to Vietnam after 2 years of COVID. And of course I got sicker than a dog, because I had germs that my body wasn't even used to using. And they're like, sorry about that. That might have been a little too hot. You know, Agatha, you had something?
Yes, I wanted to ask, and I think more like point out that our diagnosis, our symptoms started and then we were diagnosed, right? But the conflict started before the diagnosis and before the symptoms. I mean, in my case, I know specifically like one of the trigger was when my dad passed away, and that happened 6 years prior my symptoms starting. So I guess my body was adapting very well for 6 years. And then
Eh,
when everything was fine, suddenly the symptoms appeared.
yes. If it took 6 years of struggle, then you will have possibly up to 6 years of symptoms, or if you really take care of things, can shorten. But yes, it can be quite some time. And we'll look at it. Next week, we'll look at the MS symptoms. Oftentimes, what I see is there's that programming event, gets you already like topped, and then there's that triggering event, something else happens, and then your body's like, oh boy, I'm coming in. Okay. So we saw that. And then we saw, as we just mentioned right now, chronic symptoms continue because something keeps re-triggering the program. You keep working with the boss from hell. You keep doing it all yourself when you're like, oh my God, I can't. Something keeps re-triggering. And that's the piece that um, that's one of the pathways to figure out and heal is figuring out what your day-to-day triggers. I'm just working with someone with bladder issues for 15 years, and yesterday he's like, "Oh my God, I figured out how I do this daily." And so that's that wonderful when you really, he still hasn't figured out what the origin. We know kind of, but just figuring out what's happening on the day-to-day, he now can control it, right? Okay, so so you can close PowerPoints. Um, Okay, so oh no, sorry. Eeps, one more. I didn't write it down here. One more, just testing you. So what is the process of using German New Medicine? So if you come to the next one. Oh, this one I have to say, please, this workshop and all this material regarding German New Medicine is for educational use only. This is not medical advice. This is not a diagnosis, and this is not a substitute. I must say this, or else I get in trouble. Okay, continue. Take a snapshot. I have to put it, I copy paste in all my presentations. Okay, how to read your symptoms using German New Medicine. So first, you have a symptom, not oh, I have MS or IBS. That says nothing. That's why MS throws you off because it's not, that's just a bucket, it's a bucket diagnosis, you might want to call it. You look at each symptom. So you have a symptom you're looking at. In this case, this week, we're just working on eczema, backache, stomach acid, or stomach pain, your day-to-day stuff, right? The flu, you have a symptom. You have to ask yourself, what is it? What is that symptom? Oh, I have this thing on my arm. Well, what is that thing, right? Is it, is it your skin is flaking off? Is it that it's red and itchy? Is it that it's pain? What is the symptom, right? Where is it? Is it your right arm or your left arm? Is it your knee or your elbow? Those are very different organ parts. And we know that what we do with our knee is not the same as we do with our elbow. What we do with our eye is not the same we do with our tongue, right? So it's very specific, what organ and what tissue. Once we have that, we are going to research that symptom for two data points that we need. We need to know what is the conflict shock related to that symptom. And secondly, in what phase of a program of adaptation does that symptom show up? Does it show up during the conflict or does it show up during the healing? Because we need to understand that because if it's showing up during the conflict and I have a symptom of an adaptation going on today, I know I need to resolve the issue. I need to resolve the stressor. I need to find a solution so my body doesn't make the solution for me. And if I discover the symptom I have is of healing or that little healing crisis in the middle of that, well, I need to not freak out because I'm like, oh my God, I'm in healing, as I said, you need to celebrate. It's like, oh, look at my foot. It's jumping. Yay! I'm halfway through the healing process of my motor conflict. You need to A, not freak out because they are worse, the healing symptoms, than the conflict active symptoms. B, you need to take care of yourself. You're healing. Give your body nutrients, give it protein, let it have the bone, the nutrients so that it can restore stuff. And make sure that the issue that caused it is completely resolved. Okay. If you have the healing every single night, then you probably have the conflict every single day. Of course, if you have the healing every night, day for 2 weeks, you probably are going through the entire healing. But if you just keep having a little healing every night, then you need to figure out what needs to be resolved completely. All right, so we got our pieces, right? So now let's begin. You can take that one off. We're going to do a couple. Have you guys seen on the chat? I put two different resources. One is a website called learninggnm.com, and the other is a book you can actually download for free called The Psychic Roots of Disease. It's the version in English is actually free. The author gives us for free. In German, you would have to pay for it, but he's very generous and really wants this information to get out there. So I gave you guys two free resources so that we can start
Uh, I'm
practicing.
I'm not sure if you see the links in the chat.
Okay, let me resend them because they're probably up high. Here we go. Uh, Oops, sorry. Here is one, and here is the second. All right, I'm going to open one and the other. Let me just get one of them open. I don't need this anymore. Um, okay, so we're going to do a few. So first case, we're going to read gastric reflux, heartburn. Who here ever gets heartburn? No heartburn ever. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to do heartburn. How about stomach aches?
No.
No stomach aches. All right. Well, we're going to use this sometimes. Perfect. That way you're not personally attached to this one. You're like, I don't have that problem. Great. As we look at it, you'll probably realize why you don't have that problem. Heartburn. Great. Okay. So we're going to look at, imagine we have I'm doing this for a friend. We have a friend. Actually, I had a client with this a couple weeks ago with heartburn. So if I want to be able to use German New Medicine to read heartburn, I'm going to grab one of my books, and I've done this already. So here we are. I'm going to grab the book. I put find heartburn, and I found it. Let me make you guys a little smaller. Okay. So do you see the book, right? It says heartburn. Got it. What's the conflict shock? Can someone read the conflict shock?
Territorial anger conflict less often. Identity conflict dependent on handedness, hormone levels, and previous conflicts. One is sour, like gastric juices. One boils with rage, or is anger on the inside.
Okay. So the conflict, there's two possible conflicts. There's either a territorial anger conflict, which means something in my business, something in my stuff, like in my home, in my business, in my project, is making me angry or upset. Occasionally, it's an identity conflict, which is, for example, they're not seeing me how I want to be seen. They're seeing, my parents still see me as a kid, but I'm 50, kind of thing. And that depends on hormones and stuff. And that's like more detailed level of German New Medicine. But all we need to know to actually do something about it is know, okay, there's either an issue in something that's mine that I feel is mine, my stuff, my territory, and I'm angry and upset about it, or there's an issue of identity. So Bjorn has quite a few examples, which are great. So we know our conflict, and now this is a little harder, but look through conflict active and look through repair phase and tell me, when is the gastric acid? Is it in conflict active or is it in repair phase? I know it's a lot of words. I wish there was an easier book. I was trying to find something that's not so technical. But look for the word acid. When does it appear? In healing or in conflict?
In conflict active, the last line,
Yes,
producing acid reflux.
producing acid reflux. So if someone has acid reflux, they're in conflict, which means they're still angry about it. Now, what symptoms might they, and these are like way too many symptoms here, right? The problem with all the books on the internet is that they're showing you not just your daily day upset. They're also showing you if you had this like huge upset that someone like stole your business and da da, then yes, you can actually get to, have so much acid you end up having a cancer, right? But these are like your day-to-day stuff, right? And so in your day-to-day, what might also happen is pain. And this one is not really showing, but the other, so I like to compare both resources. The other one also shows sometimes people feel like, I feel like I want to vomit, right? So my client came in with complaints about pain and gagginess. And I asked, do you also have acid reflux? He goes, yeah, sometimes in the morning I wake up with, I have acid reflux in the morning as I'm preparing to go to school. He goes, but the worst is I feel like I'm going to gag and I have a lot of pain, colicky pain when I get to school. Okay, so that's what you need to know. Okay, the gastric acid is when he's conflict active and it's around a territorial anger or identity. So we explored both. And what had happened is it started 2 years ago when he was about 16, 3 years ago almost. His parents moved from the city to the suburbs. Did they ask him if he would like to move? Right? So they took him out of his territory and stuck him in the frickin' suburbs. He says there's not a restaurant there. He loves eating out. So his territory anger was that he had to move. He had moved. And the issue is, fortunately, he had negotiated with his parents that he could stay in his old school so he could be with his friends. But that meant that he had to commute into the city every day, more about half an hour, if not more. So what was happening is in the morning, he had to wake up earlier. So he was grumpy. He didn't have time to eat because he had to hurry up and get that, commute. And so he would just eat a granola bar. And while he was like, going all the way to the city. By the time he got to school and he saw his friends, he's like, I've missed my friends. That's when he went into healing. And that's when he started having pain and started gagging. So every day he would have pain and gagging when he saw his friends. And he would have gastric acid on that commute. So that's how we can read what was going on. Let's do another one. Let's do, and I didn't grab this one, but that way you guys see what it takes to find it. Let me just get my internet open. There you go. Okay, so now let's do lower back pain. Anyone here ever have lower back pain?
Yep.
Yep, okay, a few. See, everyone has something. Most of, everyone here has symptoms formally diagnosed as MS, but everyone has something, even if there's not MS, right? If I do this present, I did a presentation to a group of hypnotherapists, inviting them to incorporate German new medicine into their practice. And I was like, anyone have lower back pain? And it was like, oh, 20% of the group. Okay, less here because you guys have other things your body is dealing with, adapting to. Okay, so I'm moving you guys out of the way because I can't see my. All right, so this is the Learning German New Medicine. We're going to look for back pain. Again, what is back pain? Back pain is caused by the muscular skeletal system, right? It's that muscles and the bone area. So we're going to look at the index. Interesting how it does it when I'm on Zoom. Usually this looks all pretty, but because I'm going to do find muscular, there it is, skeletal muscles. Okay, so we're going to go into oh, that's why, because I'm offline. All right, musculoskeletal. So the location we have is the lumbar, okay? So we know that our back pain is lumbar. See if there's any other information. Okay, there's a lot here on muscles. This is why it's hard to go through here oftentimes. Once you get used to it, you ignore everything but what you need. Here's the face, the legs, the hands. Let me get my back here. Can I get the back at all? Let me check. So what we're looking for is pain in muscles of the back, any muscles. Let me find my back. Back, there we go. Arms, no, I don't want just that. Let's see if there's any for, there's MS. It's very small. What we're going to cover next week is a nice big all of them, because you kind of have to get from a lot of different places I've found. And sometimes it's very general, and we're going to look at more specific. Sorry, I'm going through this so quickly, but I'm going to try to find, I might not find it here. I might have to just show you guys my notes. Okay, I can't find the thoracic, but I will read those to you. I might actually be able to, let me do this, thoracic. Let me see if that thing actually has thoracic. Might not have it. Yeah, this takes some getting used to searching for things. See, doesn't have thoracic. All right, so we'll have to stay with the musculoskeletal. Skeletal? I'll just go back. All right, so we're talking about the skeletal muscles. What is the conflict? Tracy?
Self-devaluation.
Ah, perfect. Anything, a biological conflict linked to the skeletal muscles is a moderate self-devaluation. Self-devaluation means, so our muscles and our bones is what allows us to do things, right? If we were an amoeba and didn't have any muscles or bones, we can't really do anything other than maybe eat, poop, and that's about it, right? So our muscles and our bones is what gives us the capability. And that capability to do things, to move, is what gives us as humans value, right? We all talk about, oh, us humans have a thumb, and that's what gives us more value than a monkey, etc. This dexterity, this is what gives us value. So when the body is in a program that has to do with muscles or bones, it's about value. And it was a moment that we did not feel valued. I don't feel good enough. This is what in the MRI presentation we said shows up as the lesions. It's just the value conflicts. So we know it's about value. And I'm going to read this one to you because I've researched this one and went through, and that's why it takes a while to find stuff, but you can find it. And next week, I will give it to you as a PDF so you have it all in one place for MS. So next week, I have a lot of homework to put it all in one place. Okay, so muscles and bones adapt long term So think about when someone goes to, to try to get stronger muscles, they go to the gym. It takes longer to make that adaptation, right? Um, they first, during the adaptation, those muscles actually break down. When you're in the moment of trying to lift, like me at this body pump thing, 15 pounds, I'm actually breaking the fibers of my muscle. And that's on purpose because then those muscles rebuild stronger and tougher, right? So during the healing, those muscles are building stronger. So what occurs is during the conflict active, you might have a strain, but most people don't feel too much other than, oh yeah, I'm doing this. You see, I'm doing it. My niece had never gone to the gym before either, and she went with a friend, and they just did like a Zumba class. Nothing hurt. Nothing hurt during the adaptation. But what happened the next day? What happened the next 5 days? Right? She's 19 years old. She was like, what the hell? My whole body hurts. Right? It's like even my lips hurt. How did I get, she's probably laughing or whatever, right? It's like her whole body hurt as the body was healing from her going to the Zumba class, which was totally unexpected. Her body's like, what the hell is this? Also, my family is not very athletic. Um, okay. So it hurts in the healing phase this time. And if I read it from the other one, thoracic and lumbar spine tend to be a central self-devaluation conflict. I'm just going to copy paste this and stick it on so you guys, I'm better at reading than hearing, so I'll put it there too on the chat. Okay, so thoracic lumbar spine is a central self-devaluation. It shatters the person to the core. It might be humiliating or degrading treatment. I actually had a client who got a cancer, not just, right, not just pain in her lumbar, but it was so shattering, so humiliating in her job that she got a tumor in the thoracic spine, right? So it could be one of two things. It's either humiliating and degrading, or lower back can also be associated with feeling unsupported, unbacked up from your family or partner or friend or teacher, right? It's like, I don't feel anyone's helping me out. All right. So if someone comes with back pain, what am I looking for? What do I know? If I've read that, what do I know we're looking for that might have caused it? I know this is a lot.
Not being valued or not feeling enough.
Exactly. I know that it's about not being valued and feeling enough because it's the lower back pain. It's probably like central, like just not feeling valued and, in general. Or she went through some degrading, like, at a job and they're trying to fire you, but they can't fire you because you're pregnant. And so they're just doing everything possible to get you out of there, and so you're degrading. And so your confidence is just going lower, 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 lower until it's zero. That's one option. And if not, I will explore with them, do you feel unsupported somewhere? And I will ask, when does the back pain occur? Because what do I know? When does the back pain occur? During conflict, during the adaptation, or during healing? I moved away the thingy. So during healing, think of my niece after her Zumba, right? It was during healing. So one of my clients would have her back pain would start at the end of the day when she sat on the couch to binge on a series, right? Her conflict of the day is over. She's on the couch, she's done for the day. So what was happening is that she's a single mom, she has 2 kids, and so during the whole day she has to do everything by herself. And so she was feeling unsupported. And as her kids were getting older, they were actually not helping her. And because she was a single mom, they would say, all you do is scream at me, and so then she didn't want to scream at them all day long. But if she didn't scream at them all the day, they would never pick anything up. So she was constantly fighting this. I'm not supported. I'm not even my kids are supporting me. And so it was her lower back was trying to make her stronger to be able to support the burden all by herself. And at the end of the day, when she got on the couch, she was like, I'm not mom anymore. This is my time. I watch my episodes and I put my feet up and I have my glass of wine and I am done until tomorrow. Do not ask me for anything until tomorrow morning. And that's when her pain began every morning. I mean, every evening. So the biggest thing for her was to realize her back is not broken. It is not weak. It is only trying to make her stronger. And that cut out already 50% of the pain. Because she's like, oh, I don't have to do all the, it's like, yeah, take care. Your body's trying to get stronger. It's like right after a Zumba class, but you're not broken. And so then she's like, oh, that was half of it right there. Because every night when her body hurt, she was again going, oh my God, my body is broken and I'm not supported. So she was re-triggering it because she believed her body wasn't working right. But now that that was off the table, it was just like, okay, I need to deal with my kids. I need to sit with them. I said, you know what? This is not working. And negotiate so that she can resolve it, right? Finally, didn't do much with the kids, but now the kids have moved out and she has no issues. So sometimes you try to resolve it and sometimes life just resolves stuff for you, right? So now she has no kids in the house and no back pain, right? Okay, one last one. Because of time, I'm just going to read it to you. I'm going to put it onto the thing too. This is page 332 for eczema. Whoever said eczema a little while ago. 332. Oh, can't wait. Let me do it in two pieces. Okay. 1 and 2. All right. When someone or a baby comes in with eczema, if we look at that conflict, let me see if I can find it. 332. 332. 2. Okay, here we go. Oh, can you guys let me stop sharing and reshare because I don't even know what I'm sharing anymore. Sorry. Okay. Eczema, any skin rash, any redness or inflammation, any hives, even, as we say, extremes become any basal cells, even lupus. What is the conflict? It's around separation. It's around touch. I mean, think of the skin. The skin is what we use to touch another, right? To feel another person. So any issues with the skin is about separation with someone else. Either you're wanting to separate from them or you don't want them to separate. So I'll give you some examples from the website. It gave some examples like a baby is separated from the mother at birth, for example, put in an incubator or given up for adoption. That baby can have eczema. When the mother goes back to work or the baby's put in daycare or left with a babysitter, that will start the program, right? When a child is scolded or punished or abused, they can feel separated from their parents. That'll start this program. Others is fear of losing touch or contact with someone, like the threat of a divorce can start this program. Or the difficulty of a long distance relationship can give you hives, right? When a kid isn't allowed to see their friends anymore, or they are separated from their pet or their favorite toy, the area of the body connected to that toy. So if the baby is always hugs that toy, that eczema or any other skin issues could be on the inside, for example, of his arms, which is where he hugs the toy. It can also refer to wanting to separate. So if you want to separate from that toxic boss, that hives might be on the outside of your arms because that's the area you want to push him out of your way. Now let's see the symptoms. We'll go over here. Again, here's the conflict active and the rest, the repair phase, so the healing. This is a lot here, but when does someone have eczema? In the conflict or in the repair phase? I know this is a lot of wording here.
The repair phase?
Yes, look at that. Ding! Repair phase. So what'll happen is during the conflict phase, they might have a little dryness in the skin because actually your skin is trying to get thicker. They're trying to have thick skin because that way you don't feel the pain of the separation. And then when, for example, mommy comes home on the weekends or mommy's, with you more, or maybe during the week, you're no longer, the babysitter is giving the baby a bottle, but on the weekend, the baby gets to have the breast again. They get into repair phase and the redness and the eczema appears here in the mouth area because they were separated from the breast. Someone in the chat talks about eczema. Was it a real case or just because it would be interesting, where is the eczema, right? If it's inside the knees, think about a kid, how he holds mom, right? He puts his knees, holds him with his knees, right? Inside here and inside the knees. This is how precise the body is. German new medicine is meticulous. It is detailed. There's a reason why your body is trying to get thicker on the inside of your arms so that you can't feel the separation as much. Because this is the area of your body that wants to feel the hug, wants to feel your lover. All right. So just to summarize and give us some time for any more questions, I know this is a lot. Is today I just shared some keynotes of how to work with these. We know there has to be a conflict shock. We know as the body adapts and it adapts the organ and the tissue and the type of adaptation is actually trying to do something for you, right? Your back is trying to get stronger. Your skin is trying to get thicker. And everyone here, he has some thick skin, so you don't feel so much, right? Your skin is trying to get thicker. Your gastric acid, when you're upset and you're like, I can't believe this happened, you're trying to have more acid to break down the stuff that's shitty, right, in your environment. The stuff that you like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Your body's trying to break it down. In nature, if a fox eats a rather large animal and gets a bone stuck in his stomach, the body will produce extra acid in order to break down something that's indigestible. So that can be indigestible physically, a bone, or it can be indigestible psychologically, the fact that your parents bought a house in the suburbs and didn't tell you. All right. When we understand the symptoms as meaningful biological adaptations rather than random breakdowns, you can work with a lot greater precision and you can address the root cause directly. Just like my client with the mast cell syndrome, who just came in and she knew exactly what she had to resolve because she was like, I keep activating this and this issue. This is the thing I need to stop reacting to. And so then we did the deeper work of changing beliefs and her fears of food. She'd gone through 2 years of nutritional school, which had taught her that everything, including tomatoes, were bad for her. So that had actually been what started the mast cell syndrome. Her body was believing, and she was believing, that everything is dangerous. So any questions? Let me stop sharing.
Only thousands of questions.
Of course.
This was so fascinating. I learned more during these 2 hours than in the past few years regarding to symptoms.
Anyone else have anything? I know there's a lot. This is a great, because we're doing this in community, put your questions there. I'll check every day and try to answer as many as possible. All right. So let this absorb this, let your acids work well, and let yourself take this stuff in. Share any questions so no one has to get a shock because we're not isolated. And next week, we're going to dig a little deeper in the characteristics of those two phases, the adaptation phase and the breakdown, so that you can detect it without even reading a little bit. You know, you can go, oh, I see. Well, I'm just obsessed about this. Okay, I'm in conflict active. You know, you can get a sense of them already. And then we're going to really dive in all next week, the whole time into symptoms of MS. All right.
I made a note to celebrate our symptoms because ultimately those are telling us, in most cases, that we are healing.
Yep. And Georgina asked about, once you identify it, how do how do you heal it? That's what we'll dedicate all week for, right? As I said with this client with mast cell syndrome, she understood that the mast cell syndrome had begun when she started fearing everything as dangerous because she had gone to nutritional school. Right. And I think she had an upset stomach once or something. And she was like, oh my God, there it is. This is going to be so much worse. And it just sealed into her body, danger, danger, danger. And so her body would react to foods anytime she was about to eat something. And she's like, is this good for me? That was the trigger for the mast cell syndrome to begin all the time. Every week, there would be a moment when she would question, is this food good for me? And the body would start the fear of food as danger. And so once she knows that, and once you guys know yours, then she just came to me and said, I fear food. And it sets off my stomach. It sets off the mast cell syndrome. And so we dealt with that. We dealt with, eliminating what she'd been taught in nutritional school, right? It's like my dad, I always say my grandfather was 98 years old. He had whiskey every day. He had dessert every day, and he never had any pain or headaches or most things. He did have a belly up to here. He's like a little skinny guy with a belly. So that's another symptom. But other than that one, it's like, we do survive. He went through the Spanish Civil War. So, you know, he survived it with potatoes, rotten potatoes. And so it's like our bodies are built to adapt. They'll just create more acid, So let's figure out what it is, and then you know what you need to address. If the conflict is not removable, well, if the conflict, for example, is your husband, then you might want to go get some therapy, couples therapy, right? If he's the one, if your mother, every time your mother calls, if your fingers go numb, that is your body wanting to separate from that phone. What do you need to do to give yourself permission to not always answer that phone? What do you need to do to get empowered and not let her run you over? Because all your body's trying to do is adapt so you don't feel that pain she produces when she criticizes you every time. Right? So as Agatha said, thank the fingers. It's not a lack of vitamin D that they're, numbing. They're numbing because that phone call that happens every day with mom around 4 p.m. is painful. And that's what we'll start looking at next week. Let's see. Yeah. Yes. Fear of sometimes functional medicine is great, but it can also, like anything, produce conflict shocks and produce fears. And your body will adapt the minute you fear. If you fear you're going to get into a wheelchair, which I did, I did a lecture on it, actually only 30% at most. And that's, I mean, I can tell you who's going to get it and who's not because it's fear, right? Those are the things that are going to set off your body because your body's trying to protect you. And what? It's only protecting you from a concept that's only here, right at the moment. And that's what you need to address. And that's why having community and saying, oh, damn, maybe there's not so many people that are like, that poster child of MS. There's a lot of people with MS. They're walking around, everywhere. Only the few that, visible are the ones that we think, oh my gosh, that's me. No, that doesn't have to be you. All right.
Thank you so much, Eva. Thank
It sounds very easy. Is it enough to escape the wheelchair? My oldest client was 84. She was using a scooter, not a wheelchair. She'd had it now for 40 years. So she did not just walk away from the scooter, but she did walk around more. So she cooked standing up now, she took showers standing up. She did a lot more because at this point, after 40 years, she had a lot of muscle atrophy, which is the part that we need to, so she made them stronger, but she still had some atrophy. But again, this was 45 years. And she told me that her physical therapist, she used to have two physical therapists in order to help her bend her leg and get that, get exercise. And now it was just one, it was much easier. And she noticed that when she relaxes in bed, she can actually move her legs a lot, just not standing. And this is 84. Sometimes your, habits and behaviors and ways of thinking are a lot harder to transform by then. All right. Well, the first thing you can do is someone asked, how can I work with me? I only work with people that have at least done this work, these 8 hours, because there's such a learning curve just to get the mindset. Because if not, when I've worked with people that don't have this basis, what happens is every session, all we're dealing with is the fear. We're dealing with the fear. Oh my God, I have a new symptom. And I have to tell them, no, that's actually a healing symptom. And they're like, yeah, right. And so I don't work with anyone who hasn't done at least these 8 hours of, training and understanding the framework. Then it gets a little easier. They're like, oh, that's what you were talking about. Then it's easier and it becomes, it's a lot milder too. Okay. See you guys next Friday, same place, same Zoom address. And yes, I will on week 3, I will explain hanging healing, how that loop continues. Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Eva.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See you guys next week. And on the community. I'll be there too. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, Eva. Thank
Bye.
you. Have a great
Bye.
weekend, everyone.
Bye.